When Messi, Busquets, and even Jordi Alba were getting older, there was a reality that there would soon be a Barcelona without them. Lamine Yamal is just 17, so hopefully Barcelona is more than a decade away from a time without the current best right winger in the world. Yet, injuries are bound to happen, and Barcelona needs to consider what life without Lamine Yamal looks like, at least for a few weeks here and there. Or have you ever heard of rotation and rest? Yeah, me neither. Welcome to episode 641 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Lamine Yamal's ankle injury isn't as bad as it was originally expected to be, but this is the second time this season that Barcelona will be without, for at least a few weeks here and there, their 17-year-old MVP. There are three major things to consider about Lamine Yamal's absence for Barcelona. What Lamine Yamal does for the team, should Hansi Flick change up everything or just tweak a few things, and who are the options to get the best out of that right side while he's gone? Before we dive into all of that, I just want to ask you as a little holiday gift to me, subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a nice review on the podcast apps, become a patron for as low as $3, or get something off the merch store. And most importantly, you can join me on the watch-alongs for Big Up, having a community to be fostered over there with the chats and the interviews and all those different things. It really helps me out more than you could possibly know. All right, with that out of the way, let's get back to Lamine Yamal. So what does Lamine Yamal do for Barcelona? Better yet, what does he not do? The 2024 Golden Boy, in comparison to other top 5 league wingers, is first in successful attacking actions, first in dribbles, first in passes into the penalty area, second in total assists, second in offensive duels, second in through balls, fourth in key passes, fourth in shots, fifth in expected assists, eighth in touches in the opponent's box, and eighth in aggressive passes. As far as successful dribbles go, the top 6 are Lamine Yamal, Rafael Leao, Vinicius Jr., Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Doku, and Jamal Musiala. But stats are boring, and they do always say, show, don't tell. It's 12 assists and 6 goals this season, but even that doesn't tell the whole story. Just take the word that he is making popular again, Trivela. I know it feels like we're in a spelling bee here. Trivela, which is an outside of the boot shot or pass. He's used this pass with a high level of skill difficulty to pick some incredible assists, including against Villarreal, which was an insane ball to Rafinha. What can you do about this? It bypasses the 2 players that were between Rafinha and the ball and perfectly kept the Brazilian in stride. Or against Espanyol, when he found Dani Olmo in a tighter window, perfectly placing it into the spot where the goalkeeper had to be rooted to his line. Credit to Hector Fort's overlapping run to pull the second defender away, but this is a lot about the skill and talent of Lamine Yamal. Then there was the creme de la creme against Mallorca. And finally, a 1v1 situation. A perfect moment to dribble against a helpless defender. Then a little nice cutback with 2 or more in the box could lead to a high percentage chance. But no. Instead, this is a pass. Rafinha was the only one that seemed to know it was coming. Sure, Barcelona will miss his Trivela, but the lesson is that no other player can create from out wide like he does. And that's just with regular inside of the boot crosses. Adding the extra bit of skill that keeps defenders even more on their toes, it's irreplaceable. So should Hansi Flick change up everything or just something? But I know that you know how good Lamine Yamal is. Yet, for Barcelona, not having Lamine Yamal for a few weeks is no excuse for them to drop results, especially against Atletico Madrid, against Leganés, the game that they should have won because they played better. There are major questions on whether or not teams, even with Lamine Yamal, have figured Barcelona out. Some of it does come down to luck, though. The VAR offside against Lewandowski against Real Sociedad, that's the biggest one that comes to mind. But in pure numbers, they outscored their XG by 8 goals in their first 11 games of the season and have underperformed their XG by 4 goals since that time. The same works defensively. The risk-reward of the high line is something I've talked extensively about. Due to the quality of the squad and the ceiling for that defensive system, I still think it's worth the risk for that reward. Due to the variance of that unquantifiable luck, I think you take your lumps now, keep with the system, or at least the big system and idea at large, and then eventually, yes, the big chances that you're missing, more than any other in Europe, will come good for you. Not like they were in the first part of the season when they were exceeding expectations, but even getting back to the average will win games for Barcelona. This means that Barcelona should continue to use a wide right winger to attract attention, and they should continue to attack through the center with overloads, which they do more than any other team in the Liga. So if Barcelona is going to play the same way, my suggestion to Hansi Flick is to play as similar to the way you play with Lamine Yamal as without him. Now, I know Barcelona played well, and good things happened when Gavi and Fermin Lopez were inserted into that starting lineup against Atletico Madrid, but I'm not sure if that really brings the best out of that attacking formation. It feels like Hansi Flick has so many options, but not a single player that is more comfortable on the right wing in this system than they are on either the left or coming to the middle. all of Rafinha, Ferran Torres, Ansu Fati, Pau Victor, Fermin Lopez, Dani Olmo, and Pablo Torre. All of those players, I would argue, are better in Hansi Flick's system, especially Rafinha, on the left or in the middle than they are on the right. Which means I think it's time for Hansi Flick to take a risk. I know you have Gabi and Frankie de Jong and Ronald Araujo and Eric Garcia, a swarm of good players behind all those attackers I named, looking for minutes right now. But in the absence of Lamine Yamal, I think Hansi Flick needs to be practical and implausible at the same time. Practical with his system by playing the closest profile to Lamine Yamal on the right, and implausible by trusting a player that on paper he shouldn't be trusting over all the other options he has on his bench. Some of which may not be happy about what I'm about to suggest, and yes, that is give minutes to Barca athletic players who may be less qualified for these minutes, but I think fit a role a bit better than the ones in the first team right now. Because if you want the natural replacements for Lamine Yamal, they're in the second team right now. We saw in the preseason that Tony Fernandez was the one that did the best Lamine Yamal impression. The 16-year-old just came back from an injury of his own, but the Copa del Rey could be the perfect moment for him to get a run out to see if he can help out in the weeks afterwards. I think Tony Fernandez is option 1. Option 2 is Dani Rodriguez, who also recently came back from an injury and has usually played on the left wing throughout his career. But Albert Sanchez has been using him as a dribbling right winger, capable of cutting inside on his favored left foot or taking things at a touchline with a dribble. He's both scoring and assisting since his return. He's looked really good on the right, and this might just be the perfect moment for the 19-year-old. The other options are Aziz Issa, but he's only been at the club for a few weeks. There's Noah Darvic, the regular starter for Barca Athletic on the right, but I don't think he's the right dribbling profile to attract that second defender. The same goes for Unai Hernandez, Guy Fernandez, and Alex Garrido. They're talented players, but again, I'm looking for a player to be a right winger. Same can be said for Ibrahim Diarra, because he is a right winger, yes, and he's training with Barca Athletic, but he also did just arrive, and Kool-Aid should be patient on him. Of all those names I just mentioned, I think the first team players, especially inserting Gabi and Fermin Lopez, like we saw against Atletico Madrid, are better options. So there you have it. That's what I think Hansi Flick should do. I think he should keep as much harmony as possible on the pitch. And hey, he's the manager of FC Barcelona. It's his job to deal with the egos and all those different things, contracts, whatever it is, in the locker room, and keep that stuff in the locker room. Though I bet you that winning and good results and eventually trophies in the spring, those first team players, especially if they get some kind of role, won't care that another 16-year-old helped them get there. Before I go, I so appreciate all the support that everybody has given me in 2024, both personally and as well as the podcast and the community as a whole. So thank you so much for that. For 2025, hey, I said I have a few promises, and I want to continue to take this whole project to new heights. I want to give it continued effort. I know I always give effort, but I want to continue to push the envelope on what I can do here. And I will need your help for that. While my Patreons help me out, and while just subscribing and giving a good rating on the podcast apps and all that different stuff, even word of mouth, all of that is helpful. But for 2025, especially in the first half of the year, the biggest way to help me out is to become a member on Big Up. It is free to do. Become a member there and join me for those watch-alongs. Just sit in and hang out. You can come on as a guest. Join that community on Big Up. Join the watch-alongs. That is a huge help for me in 2025, more than you could possibly know. So I think that'll wrap up 2024. There's so many different ways to say this, right? There's Merry Christmas, there's Bon Nadal, there's Feliz Navidad, Happy Holidays to everyone else. And as always, it's the most important thing all year round that we say, Forza Barca.